Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you, Leon. Good to see you.
Likewise, thank you for agreeing to join me.
It's an absolute honor.
Uh, Such a fan of your channel. I've really enjoyed getting to know you in part over the last sort of 6 months or so since it came up in my feed. Obviously, not at random, it was meant to happen. And you've provided me with a wonderful mixture of belly laughs and great deep understanding that's just helped me to grow. So, yeah, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. It's the credit's not to me, it's to ourself, to our Christ, to our source. It just flows through me, and I'm just glad to be the messenger.
Perfect. So, speaking of a messenger, something that you said, which I really loved recently, you're talking about the Holy Spirit, and you said essence energy, which retains the memory for God. Beautiful. How
Yeah,
could
if we-
you expand on that for us, please?
Holy Spirit's not an entity. Um, there is a certain level of the course. Let's go back to Ken's ladder. So we speak of the ladder. At a certain level of the ladder, as an initiate, someone new to the course, someone that's just come from Christianity and still needs an image
Mm,
of someone guiding them or speaking to them, fine to speak about the Holy Spirit as if it's giving us guidance, being giving us guidance. But at a certain stage, I really do teach it at the highest level of non-dual understandings. But the Holy Spirit is the very essence of what we are. And so if we want to take it into a complete non-dual space, which I believe the Course in Miracles is when you really understand the big picture,
yeah.
God is pure energy. Another word for energy is spirit. So before people knew what energy was 4,000 years ago when they started writing the Bible and all the biblical texts, it's just pure energy, light energy. Light is energy, pure light energy, ever extending. Light energy is spirit. So the essence of God is pure light, pure energy, pure essence energy. So God's energy, God's essence, God's spirit is holy energy. And so the extension of God is the sonship. And therefore the sonship is made from God's essence energy. And if God is a Holy Spirit, then the Son is a Holy Spirit too. When one of those, so imagine light is made up of billions of light particles. Every light particle is a sun. One light particle falls asleep. As he falls asleep, his mind splits in half. Half dreams up the universe, half of it remains awake. Now, before that sun particle of light falls asleep, there was no need for names, it's just pure light.
Mm,
But in the dream, that particle of light is now a son of God. The part of it that is awake, we call Christ mind, the mind that is awake, anointed in light. The part that is asleep, we call the dreaming mind or the ego mind or the wrong mind, right, wrong mind. But the essence of the dreaming mind is energy. Essence energy is spirit. So the essence of what we all are is essence energy, is Holy Spirit. And in that essence energy, it's that essence energy that calls us all to be ourself knowingly, to be loving, to be compassionate, to be kind, but most of all, to remember ourselves.
mm.
So why can no one remember God? Why can no one remember what they were before they projected into form? Well, first of all, we can't remember God because God is not in the past. And so memory is always past. God is always in the present. And when you're fully present, there's no thought. And if there's no thought, there's no memory. We cannot remember God because God is not in the memory. God is the presence, essence, energy which we can only access as the self. Some call it the heart, right-mindedness, right-mindedness, self, in total silent stillness. And in the presence of silent stillness, there's the essence energy ever extending, because God is still ever extending, whether we're asleep or not. And when we're present in that essence energy, that extension moving through what we think is us, as essence energy of silent stillness moves, we become aware of its peaceful nature. And so what am I? Peace. And when the peace keeps extending, when peace extends, we call that joy. The I am is the presence of peaceful joy. It's the essence energy, which we are, I am, which is what God is, which is what we're all returning to in remembrance. We're becoming members again. We remembering self and God as one.
Well, we're done then, aren't we? Shall I press stop and say thank you?
It's formless. God is the formless primordial essence awareness. Because when you're silently still, there's no thought. What happens when there's no thought?
No form.
It's just pure awareness. Of what? Of awareness itself, of that essence energy, God. It's what I am. It's what you are. It's what we all are. Collapse into one, ever extending as God. The eternal now. There's no past. There's no future. There's not even a present. There's only presence.
Yeah, put a really good spin on presence as a word for me in the last couple of weeks. I picked up on it in one of your recent videos where you're sort of guiding us through the workbook and doing 10 lessons at a time, plus the introduction to the section. And when you spoke about presence, and I really grasped it as like non-directional, just there. I was like, it's really powerful and really helpful interpretation of that word.
Yeah, and even beyond there, it's here now, here, nowhere, everywhere, because eternity is always now. And it's always extending. It's what animates the ethereal appearance of a body mind. It's what gives us life. It is life itself.
Into his presence would I enter now? It's what that's given me such a different slant on that.
Yeah, and it goes beyond non-dual understanding. As you know, the word understanding means to stand under. And so we then transcend standing under concept, because it's all concept. We need dualistic concepts to bring us into the non-dual understanding. But then we need to integrate all of it. That's the reason why we're in form, is we came into form to be informed by the nonsense we made up. So we came into form. We want to be informed. And so when we now transcend information, we move into true knowledge. Knowledge that we cannot grasp because there's no thought in that knowledge. And we can't conceive of knowledge without thought. The thought of God is without human knowledge. It is just the I am, full stop.
Yeah.
We say God is, full stop. We say I am, full stop. We're saying the same thing. God is, or I am is the same essence energy. Transcendence.
And this is something that's cropped up in the whole series so far, is like I keep saying to people, and again talking to my wife about it this morning, it's like, how does the separate self find a context within oneness.
Yeah. There's a wonderful term in Advaita Vedanta, the neti neti. So it's through the experience of what I'm not that I realize what I am.
Mm.
So we need the polarity, and
Mm.
hence the mirrors, the special love-hate relationships,
Yeah.
in order to realize what I am through the experience of what I'm not.
Mm.
So I could say, I'm an alcoholic because my father was, or I'm not an alcoholic because my father was.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dad, for being the alcoholic, because I may have become that. Gratitude.
Mm.
There's the forgiveness instantly. The minute there's gratitude, forgiveness is done. Because gratitude means that I realize this hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Forgiveness happens on several rungs of the ladder too. So at first, we learn to forgive because if I forgive you, then I release myself from carrying this burden, which is just eating me up. So we hear that poison analogy.
Yeah.
Not forgiving someone is like carrying poison.
Yeah.
The next rung is I forgive you because, oh, thank God for the lesson. So, oh, it's one step up. So I've learned now I won't do that again, and I won't let anyone do that to me again. So I forgive you because I won't let that happen again. And I realize, oh, hang a second, I set it up in my formative years. I then reinforced it in my teens, and then I went into my 20s and really reinforced it. And by the time I moved into my mid-30s, I was a miserable git filled with rage and anger. But I don't realize that daddy dropped me on my head when I was a kid, and my girlfriend dropped me when I was 16, and my wife left me when I was 26, and my boss rejected me when I was 35. It's the same lesson of rejection.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that lesson, oh, I can forgive it, that won't happen again. Then we move into the realization, hang on a second, I'm dreaming all of this up. There's nothing to forgive. So, Father, forgive me for imagining I could dream this up.
Mm.
And then we move to the top of the ladder. This never really happened. And I like to play with words, forgiveness. So forgiving, so forgiving and receiving are the same thing. So forgiveness and receiving is the same thing. But forgiving, by giving, I receive what? Forgiveness. Forgiving and receiving are one and the same thing. I love the English language because I like to play with it.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that, because one of the things that I've got here in my notes is the word still. And obviously, I'm still as God created me. We know that that gets repeated more than anything else, probably, in the course in terms of the workbook.
Yeah.
And I like to say, like, in that sentence, I am still as God created me. You could look at the words and almost like create a ranking to like importance. I am still as God created me, and still could seem like the tiny little irrelevant stepping stone. And then that made me look up still in the dictionary, and four different definitions. You've got the adjective, which is not moving or making a sound. You've got the noun, which is deep silence and calm. The verb, to make or become still, to quieten. And then the adverb, up to and including the present, even now or then as formerly.
Beautiful.
And that's the word still that you just think.
Yeah. Mic drop. That's it. So
And
be still and know I am is be quiet
yeah,
and be silently still,
yeah.
for you are still as God created you. The silent stillness is the essence energy of I am.
Mm.
It's that silence between the notes.
Mm.
Without the silence between the notes, there wouldn't be a melody.
Yeah.
And when we go into total silent stillness, that is I am. That is the memory of God.
Mm.
Silent stillness is the memory of what I am.
Mm. In a language beyond thought form.
And then we go quiet.
And then we
There's
press
nothing more
stop
to
again
say.
and I say goodbye again.
That's it.
Because you and I had a brilliant conversation in the week. really energizing. And I spoke to you about something that Rupert Sheldrake had put in my mind, someone I like. He's a really interesting guy. And he was talking about a wave. And he said a wave needs two things to exist. It needs space in order to oscillate between the peaks and the troughs, and it needs time to travel from there to be a wave. And then you said to me, which my wife said to me as well later on when I was relaying her the story of our conversation, she said at exactly the same point that you did, also needs energy. And I was like, wow, and then you said there's the triangulation. And then that took our conversation to trinities and trines and da da da. And then you see, since then, I've started to think about stillness and the I am presence and the definition of stillness, not moving or making a sound. And then thinking about lovely, beautiful Albert Einstein and how that I find great charm and joy in the fact that he didn't have a team of CGI engineers that he could just get on his mobile and say, "Hey, listen, I've just considered this. Can you guys, run a program and see if I'm right?" Um, and yes, that made him a terrible father and husband because he would like go to bed for 3 months because he just had to suss this thing that he wanted to look at from all angles. And then he'd get up and he'd go, bang, I've got it. And one of his great things with special relativity, when he sort of came to the conclusion that if an object's moving at a constant speed, it can be considered to be at rest, even though it's in motion. Part of him realizing that understanding was when he thought about himself running alongside a beam of light at 186,000 miles a second and looking across at that beam of light and the oscillations between electric and magnetic energy that creates a beam of light. He expected in his mind, in his first consideration, for the beam of light to be stationary and for him to look stationary and see it. But then on further in sort of contemplation, he's like, well, hold on, for light to be light, it can't be still, it can't be static, it does need to be moving, to be oscillating, otherwise it's not light. So if we look at light saying God is love, love is light, light is peace, peace is stillness, stillness is silence, changes the understanding of the I am perspective, because stillness, light can't be static. It has to be it has to be active, and moving.
Yeah. And that brings me to, I'm going to extend it. I'm just explore that a little bit. One of the greatest fears we have is dissolving into God and losing our identity.
Yeah.
So one of our greatest fears is not just death, it's never having existed at all and having no memory of ever having existed. That's one of our greatest fears. That's why many people love the idea of a spirit world. So at least up there, I'm going to have my cat, my dog, and my wife, and my ex-wife, and my ex-girlfriend, and all of them are going to get along and love each other unconditionally, and I'll retain the memories of my good past, and I'll be able to tell stories, and there's no fuel required, so I could ride my motorcycle forever. We love that idea. What we don't love the idea is we are light and we're going to dissolve into the light, and there's no memory of ever having been a universe or ever having existed. Gary Renard's Disappearance of the Universe, perfect title. Just it disappears into the light we are. And so when we start to bring these concepts together, what I find is if you triangulate, you cannot have peace without love, and you can't have love without joy. Makes sense. So then they must be true. At the center of it is always silent stillness. Past, present, future, here now, silent stillness. Past, sin. Present, guilt. Future, fear. In the center of it is silent stillness. What happens to all those three truisms in subjective reality dissolve into the absolute reality, silent stillness. the eternal essence of light, the eternal essence of truth, the eternal essence of I am, the eternal essence of the primordial energy called God. We need stories. We need a word God. We need a word Christ. We need a word self. In essence, it's just light ever extending, not making a single sound, except maybe a violin.
But in that abidance, as you describe it, for light to be light, there is movement.
And God is ever extending.
Mm.
So there's the movement of the particle waves forever extending as the joyous love, peace, celebration, which is love, God.
Mm. And a word you use, which has come to be powerful for me as well, is abidance. I love the way that you've really given that some really beautiful resonance for me.
Yeah, because we're always there. Once, so let me take a step back. The realm of dream state is consciousness. So the mind falls asleep and becomes conscious of itself asleep. Consciousness is the realm of dreaming mind. And obviously in consciousness, there's levels.
Yep.
So either we're completely unconscious, semi-conscious, and even when we become conscious, there's still the subconscious playing, the sin, fear, guilt, the fear that we've tried to kill God and he's going to try and destroy us, this vengeful God up in heaven or wherever. And yet, when we get to bridge consciousness, we start to become aware. Now, we use awareness in the English languages, and I'm aware of the tree, I'm aware of the cat, I'm aware of the dog, but we're really talking about conscious awareness. We get to a certain stage in our dissolving of identity where we move into what the Course calls bridge consciousness, where we become aware that we are pure awareness. And awareness is all pervading. And from awareness came the dream. So everything exists in awareness. Everything comes from awareness, even dream, even the dream that didn't happen in true reality. So when we start to return to the awareness of the awareness, the mind goes silently still. And that's when most people recede. They want to run away from the world. They want to become reclusive. They want to dial out. They want to reject the world. There's a time for that. All of us need to go through it. But when you abide in silent stillness, there's going to, you're going to become aware of that energy, which is forever moving. And it's going to make you want to act. Now, at first, it's, oh, I'm missing out. I should get back. Abide. Because there's still a desire of scarcity, missing out, or gain. I need to do something. I need to do nothing. Simply smile and watch and do nothing. Abide. And at a certain stage in our awakening to the awareness we are, we'll become aware of that ever-present energy in which we're contained as ethereal characters, and it'll want to move, it'll want to act. And that's when you move back into the world and pour your passionate nature back into the world. Now, the word passionate to me is pass I on. It's passing the I am on, passion. And it'll want to move through us. And that's when people say, but what do I do? Should I give up my day job and become a full-time Course in Miracles teacher? Fuck no, please don't. If you're a teacher, you would have been a teacher since day dot. You're designed to teach. You're always teaching. You're always learning. What is it? What is your talented nature? What is your egoic talents that you set up when you ran away from God? When you try to get away from God, you designed it in a certain way. The dreaming mind fractured us into 9 septillion beings, trying to get away from its source, trying to forget its source. Inside you is your built-in talented nature. You've now given this to the holy memory, to the Holy Spirit within you. You give your passionate, talented nature to the Holy Spirit within, to the memory of God within. And the memory of God uses the very makeup that you've designed to get away from God. He uses that to return you to the awareness you are. And so Leon plays music. Lou does strategy, company turnarounds. I fix companies that are in huge trouble with thousands of employees. They're about to close and thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. And I get a vision. I go. Whether it's a year or 5 or 10 or whatever the case may be, and I go and I transform them. How do I transform them? The answer's always within them. I listen to everybody and I just align them. That's my natural nature. I search for the truth. I have this unwavering desire for the truth. I've had it since day dot. I want to understand it. Now, of course, at first it was all egoic. I wanted to understand the makeup of the world and how did we come into form and who were the Anunnakis and do we come from monkeys and, etc. And who built the pyramids. I wanted to know the truth. That's how I started my path into understanding self.
Yeah.
Now it's realizing that it's just pouring the joyous nature that once we give our talented nature back to the memory for God uses that. So Holy Spirit uses that to bring the collective into awakening awareness. Everything we do is for ourselves. It's actually a very self-centered experience. Because when I center in self, it seems like I'm doing it selfishly. I'm living for this self. No, when I live for self, I atone to self. And by atoning for self, I atone for the rest of us. It's what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. It's what he tried to teach us. Stay present in you. Don't focus on the wars in the world. Focus on what's right in front of you and act from a passionate nature. Pour yourself lovingly. Pass I on into the world because you're passing it on to the rest of your fractured selves. We're one self. And so when this little fracture heals, this fracture returns to the right mind. Another part of the fractured mind is lit by the Christ mind, lit, anointed by the Christ. And now one more fractured cell joins with the center, which is lit. And as more and more of us collect in the center, the dreamer awakens. If you're dreaming at night and all the characters in your dream are shouting, Leon, wake up, you're going to wake up. See, we think that I awaken. I don't awaken. I simply realize self. The I that am dreaming us up wakens. You don't wake up in the morning and let's say you dreamt of a music concert and you were woken up halfway in the concert and there's 10,000 people standing in your bedroom. Like, no, you guys have got to go back to my dream. You don't exist. I exist, but you don't. No. You awaken, all the dream characters dissolve. When the dreamer awakens to self, the Christ self we all are, there's no more dream. The universe dissolves into the light because it's made from light. What appears as objects, the core essence of everything is the light we are. That's why we cannot reject the world and push the world away, because it's all of us. We have to love all of ourselves unconditionally. We have to love all of ourselves with compassion. The problem is we get stuck. We mix up compassion and empathy. And people love to say that empathy is a good thing. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, if anyone's listening, please, if you're an empath, God bless you. Nomine Patri Filii et Spiritus Sancto, Amen. Okay, but just hear me out before you go all woke on me and cancel Leon for the rest because he's now interviewed this crazy person. Just bear with me for a second. Forget about what you've learned. Empathy, you've been told, is a good thing because you feel for others. But hang a second. If you feel others' pain, you feel their dream. And they now drag you into their dream. And now you share in your brother's suffering. You share in his concept of his own victimhood. Empathy is not a good word. Sorry, good and bad. There's no good and bad. But for the sake of this understanding. So now you're suffering their victimhood, their sin, their fear, their guilt, their whatever suffering. Rise above the battlefield, Holy Son of God, with passion, with passion, with compassion, with the passion of the Christ, the awake mind, realizing these are all fractures of yourself. Don't suffer their pain. Love them out of their pain. Compassion is right-minded, act, call for love. That asks us to raise each other above the battlefield and join with our true Christ mind where no suffering exists. And that is to be our true self-knowing. So let's let go of empathy. Why are we empaths? We're all empaths. Every single human being is an empath to a varying degree, to the degree that they allow themselves to feel. Because why? We're one indivisible whole. But if we feel our wrong-minded suffering, we get trapped in wrong-minded suffering. Now, at some stage, yes, you feel right-mindedness, but the feeling of right-mindedness ends very quickly because thoughts become sensations. Sensations become feelings, and feelings become emotions. Now, what's the emotion of the I am? What's the emotion of I am? It's silent stillness. And what emotion is there in silent stillness? I spoke about it earlier. Extension of what? Silent stillness becomes the extension of peace, ever extending joy. How can you suffer joy? You rise above the battlefield in the joyous light of awareness. Raise your brother above the battlefield. See their suffering. You understand, you've been there. We all have. We're all sharing it. But you now choose right-mindedness, which is raise them out of it. Don't go and suffer. If you cry, you wet your face. When you laugh, the world laughs with you. And what is it that we need to do, Holy Son of God? Remember that we forgot to laugh. Let's get back into that joyous existence. Now this sounds all so easy. Take it from someone who was the angriest person you could imagine, who lived with a sense of righteousness because I believed the world was cruel, and I really had such anger towards cruelty and racism and discrimination and sexism. It made me so angry, and I would act from anger. Self-righteousness, and what I called was God's righteousness. And where did it get me? Just more and more anger. And I just couldn't understand why bad things happened to good people, because I was a good guy. Good guys dress in black. I got that from Einstein. I decided many years ago, after watching an Einstein video, that they showed his wardrobe and he only had black shirts and black trousers, and it looked so he didn't have to give any attention to what he was going to wear. And I'm half colorblind anyway, so it didn't have to ever mix and match. So I learned that from Einstein. Wear one thing, but I digress. The purpose is when we can bring each other into the awareness of what is, we no longer suffer our dream. We return to right mind. And that doesn't mean that you don't feel what someone else is going through. Of course you do, but then you bring yourself straight back into suffering isn't real. I can see peace instead of this. The only reason I'm feeling their suffering is because I've gone back into the past and I brought my past memory of an empathetic suffering into the situation. I now feel their suffering, and now I'm getting angry with them. I let go, I let God. I step in, I abide. I become aware, I extend, and I raise myself with my brothers out of the idea of suffering. So you don't not act. Of course we act. It's the appearance of acting. But we act from a place of love, not from a place of anger. If I was to see an atrocity or see violence, I would most certainly still act. Although I hardly see it now because it's no longer in my mind. It's not that it's all of a sudden, South Africa's become a peaceful country. I'm sure it still has its problems. It's no longer brought into my awareness because I have no need to play the hero, that has bad things happen to him. And that's the beauty. And so take it from someone that lived an angry life because I was hurt. I'd been terribly hurt as a child, and I'd experienced terrible discrimination and racism. And I'm not we move into fight or flight, and I'm not into flight. This falcon's wings were clipped at a young age, so I'm into fight. So I would confront it. And that just made me an angry, vengeful person. Because I wanted retribution. I wanted to protect good people and innocent people because of my empathy. And I took a huge internal step, turning inwards, to realize I'm creating this, I'm recreating this, because I need to be the hero of my own dream. I needed to step back into this.
Yeah.
And the minute I was able to make peace with this through the abidance of the awareness I am, I could now go out in the world, chop wood, fetch waters, feed the kittens, and no longer have to carry a gun, which was a major step in my early 30s, because I was reliving a war that I hadn't forgiven. So if I can, I mean, I still go to certain places in South Africa and people are still afraid of me. They still really think of me as that character 30 years ago, and it's funny. It's
making me think of Ken when he's talking about Jesus as like a symbol for right-mindedness and non-judgmental awareness and pure forgiveness. And Ken says, we don't say, Jesus, come down here, please, and be where I am. We ask our awareness to meet Jesus's awareness so that we can be lifted up. Because otherwise, he said, we pull him down here and then we build churches around him and altars, and then you have entire religions who are transfixed on him on a cross suffering and going, oh, look at Jesus on the cross suffering. It's like, from A Course in Miracles sort of viewpoint, it's like, what is the message of the crucifixion? Is it the fact that this human being went through this insanely atrocious physical experience and then died, whether or not the resurrection is part of that interpretation, the very human aspect of it, or that somebody was so connected to their true awareness that even when someone's driving a nail through the palm of their hands, they look at the person who appears to be separate from them doing that physical act. And on their behalf and on his own behalf, he makes a plea to the source of us all for forgiveness, because that's what he's aligned his mind with. And that symbol is Jesus an empath? Is Jesus going, oh, looking, he's like,
no, Passion of the Christ.
mm.
What I like about Ken, I love Ken, absolutely love Ken. And remember, Ken is the fundamental teacher. So the entire course community owes to Ken for being the first fundamental teacher. He brought the fundamental foundation of the course. Then you have the next level up, and you've got guys like David Hoffmeister, who's just brought it. I mean, David's just gleaming smile, I mean, if I was to smile as much as David, the top of my head would come off, because it wasn't designed that way. David's just glows, and he just loves. David's just a walking, talking bundle of love. That's what David is. David then dials in David completely gets the course. There's nothing about the course he doesn't get. He lives it. He's a living example of a miracle. But David dials into that lower three, let's say 10 rungs of the ladder. He dials it in. So he's using that Jesus word a lot. And he's using it as a symbol. Ken would often describe at the top level, in heaven, there's no you, there's no I, there's no Jesus. Okay. And the danger in the course comes in. If we think of Jesus as anything other than an egoless abstract presence. So if it's egoless, it has no empathy. It's pure compassion. He's not suffering with us. He's showing us that there's no suffering. He's showing us that we're dreaming. So we think of him as anything other than egoless, abstract, right-minded love, light, which represents our true self, our true Christ self. So the right side of the mind, the right mind, not the right side of the mind, the right mind, who is the essence energy of God's eternal love, then we get trapped with that symbol. That symbol traps us. Now we think Jesus was empathetic, so we must be too. Now, he was compassionate. He had no problem spending some time in the temple and turning whatever he did into a whip and sorting him out. He had no problem standing in front of a mob that wanted to stone a woman and said, "Hey, the Jews never cast the first stone." He could imagine an angry mob of people that are wanting to project their anger onto a woman who is just nothing, a prostitute on top of it all. She had no rights in those days. Can you imagine? I mean, they think it's their right. They can stone their daughters and their wives by law. They can do that. And Jesus stands in front of them and says, this isn't a wussy person.
No.
He didn't ask nicely. He stood in front of them and said, no. No. This is passion. This is compassion. This is the entire power of God flowing through one fractured part of our mind, appearing as the man Jesus 2,000 years ago. And what is Jesus trying to teach us? Who did Jesus pray to? Was there a Jesus before a Jesus? Who held his hand? Jesus is trying to get us to do exactly what he did. Abide. I and my Father are one. When a thought arrives, get behind me, thought, or the Bible explained it, get behind me, Satan. I realize this, you'd come from nothing. Thought's not real. I'm giving you no attention. Whatever you're trying to, because what did Satan do? Showed him the universe, showed him he could have anything, teased him, said, why don't you call down on your angels? And he smiled. I'm not giving you any attention. Get behind me. I'm not denying you. I'm not, because to deny means I first have to admit it's true and then I deny it.
Yeah.
I'm not denying you. I'm just simply not giving you any attention. I abide in my Father. And now, so what do people try and do? They want to bring Jesus down. Hold my hand. Things don't work out. Oh, it didn't work. So then I start to make up, imagine what Jesus should be. And the reason Jesus didn't help me was I'm not good enough, or that person was supposed to die, or, I've sinned and I haven't done enough and I have to atone some more and I need to sacrifice some more. And so they start making up all these ideas of what a Jesus should be like. And then we put up pictures of him. And what do? We then objectify an idea as opposed to return. You want to know Christ? And I like to say Christ Jesus. Let's at least acknowledge our brother who came 2,000 years ago for having attained right-mindedness. Realizing he was dreaming. So I like to say Christ Jesus and emphasize Christ, because the minute we say Christ Jesus, he 2,000 years ago, who's physically gone, is now one with us right here now. Not holding our hand. He's the very energy within us. It's the essence energy we all are, Christ's mind. The extension of God's energy. And so what a lot of people do is they get trapped with this, Jesus holds my hand, Jesus walks me home. The journey inward is with no distance. You're closer than close. There's no walking anywhere. It's just abiding. Now, I know the Course teaches in different levels and we're walking each other home. It sounds really romantic. Actually, you're not going anywhere. We're just abiding here now. We're dreaming this up in our Father's kingdom. We've never left. So how far is the journey home? We travel on a journey with no distance to a place we've never left, through a time that's never existed. And that means that I'm home right here now, imagining I'm this, speaking to a person called Leon, who's actually just a part of myself, as are all 8 billion of us on this planet and 9 septillion throughout the universe. Nothing more to say.
Amazing.
I get to these moments, I'm like, what else should I add?
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm thinking, I'm thinking of the temporary sort of benefits to people with the symbol of Jesus. All of this, it comes back to what I was saying to you earlier about this running theme of like finding the context for a separate self in oneness, or like we said earlier, find what are the words to describe silence. It's like there's a complete like crossover between. It's like I, I don't know. There's all sorts of analogies you could try and put together where two things, circles and squares and blah blah blah, they don't go together. But if you're still looking, like you said earlier, about how in heaven, the awareness, as Course in Miracles brilliantly says, heaven's not a place, it's an awareness. And then it was, if we're saying, like you rightly said earlier, about, somebody thinks, oh, I'm going to go to heaven and I'm going to still be there and all my favorite, you want to take the story with you and all the forms with you, then this is the same principle of that separate self trying to find context within oneness. So on that journey to finding that context, you can see that someone's going to see Jesus in a certain way to hold their hands to get them from mile 10 to mile 100. But in order to progress with the true understanding and to give the right respect to the whole process, that concept has to be malleable enough to move with your understanding and be elastic enough to realize that when you do get to the point of saying Christ consciousness, Christ Leon, Christ Lou, Christ Jesus, Christ, this one shared characteristic that precedes the separate identity, that's the bit that it's like it's almost like in reverse, weirdly, the surname and the Christian name, one of them dissolving, like the Christian name, the surname dissolving because we realize we're all part of one family, that kind of principle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that as a segue, I thought it would be nice to something that you said this morning, which has changed my day, which was about Ken Wapnick's metaphor of the cinema, Jesus being in the cinema.
Yeah.
And watching the movie and this whole very purposeful scenario where we're given a situation where we can be in the company of a being who embodies right-minded awareness, non-judgmental awareness, who's looking at our life. We get to look at our life from that position of where that awareness sits. We watch it without investment. We watch it in a way that it's not actually happening now. It's in some sort of playback, or it's happened or it hasn't happened. All of this, again, malleability for multi-interpretable positions to look at this from. You made a very interesting point, and you said that Jesus simply invites us to switch off the cinema projector in our minds. And I was like, wow, that is just so helpful. And it ties in so beautifully with the use of the word projection, because projection in Course in Miracles language was like a big hitter for me. It really was so purposeful and so spot on. And this, you get to the whole thing with the iambic pentameter. You'd say, if somebody was able from lesson 76 right the way through to write this whole thing, that's almost like a little like someone going, there you go, just in case you wondered whether or not this was put together by an intelligence that leaves you guys for dust. There's one bit of proof if you need it. And the same thing with all of this superbly intelligent and purposeful language. And projection is, we know that with Helen, because she was interpreting the material, and there was going to be the Shakespearean angle on it because she loved Shakespeare. There was going to be the psychology because she loved psychology. But the understanding of how projection works and how with your mind the world becomes an outward picture of an inner condition, and everything's a mirror, and all relationships are the classroom, because the thing you need to learn isn't out in the world because there is no world. the thing you need to learn is whatever that block is in your awareness to love's eternal presence. So yeah, for you to say that he encourages us to switch off the cinema projector in our minds, I was like, oh, that made my trip down the beach a little bit lighter on the foot, and I was a little less present physically.
It's all, as Ken speaks of, the rungs in the ladder. You know, what Ken forgets about the ladder is we all know the game of snakes and ladders. And so if you're not very careful as you're climbing up the ladder, as there's a snake in there too, and you think you're so special at some stage and it just pulls you all the way back down. So we've got to be aware of that we do that. And we hear a great analogy. Ken is great at them. The other one of my favorites is Rupert Spira,
Yeah,
with the King Lear analogy.
sure.
But let's stick to the cinema one for now. And so we hear the cinema story. So we're in the cinema, the screen, holographic screen.
Yeah.
And there's a projector. It's up there somewhere and it's projecting. And there's a movie. We can't erase the screen because the movie's in the projector.
Mm.
And you can't actually change the movie because it was shot a couple of months back. and so we get that, and Jesus is saying, don't pay attention. And if it's a horror movie, just switch the sound down. And then realize, just switch the projector. Hang a second. Let's take it one deeper. If we go into non-dual, and Christ is the voice in the mind, it's our true self. Part of us is awake. Remember, Jesus is just symbolic for the part of ourself which is awake. And it's the voice that says, hey, God is the light with which you see. And now you use that light to project images. So your rose-colored glasses have now got images on it. You're projecting light through it onto a holographic screen, which you call the universe. And there you see your story and you're getting upset. But it's here. The film is in your head. Your eyes are the lenses, and you're projecting through your eyes onto a holographic universe, and now you're upset about it. Switch it off. Return to silent stillness. Realize there's no screen, there's no you, there's no cinema. There's just the light of awareness. You've gone and created a you and a screen yes, there's a stage for a Jesus, but now it's the I am, the Christ self we all are. And then it's just, there's no more screen because I return to the silent stillness. You see, we all know that when our journey away from God ends, at some stage, it's fuck this. There has to be a better way. However we say it, okay? And mine was really, fuck you, God. What the hell were you thinking? Why do animals have to suffer for us to, people like speak, oh, we love Africa. We loved coming on safari. It's so peaceful out in the bush. No, it's not. Something is always killing something else. And no, it's okay. The gazelle are just getting eaten by the lion because the lions have to eat. Well, the gazelle want to live too. Gazelles also Bambi's also got a mommy and a daddy. Oh, they don't feel anything. How do you know they don't feel anything? Have you ever been a gazelle? Perhaps in your past life? Esoteric mumbo jumbo nonsense. Everything is killing something to eat. Something. So seriously, God, you couldn't have come up with something where we could just all live off fruit and manna. Why do you have to have herbivores and carnivores? And what were you thinking? How you could be so angry with God about that? And then, why does someone have to kill someone? And why do babies have to be murdered and raped, and women and raped and murdered? And what? And then you can give me all these wonderful answers that evil is the absence of love, or wonderful. Where did this all come out? Satan is tempting you. Just that didn't work. So I got to that point like, fuck you, whatever you were thinking. I fell asleep one night on the couch, really angry. I was watching a movie on polar bears and global warming or global cooling or whatever the nonsense politicians have now made up. Okay. And so now the polar bears are drowning. And it's so funny because people have gone out. Greenpeace is now trying to rescue them on these boats, and they're trying to pull the bears into the boat. And as soon as they pull the bear onto the boat, it's it's exhausted, it's, you know, and it's starving, so it now tries to eat the guys on the boats. It's just one big disaster. Whatever solution humans create, we create another problem. Because now the polar bears are drowning because mankind has messed up the planet. And like, dude, really, couldn't you have thought of a better way? You know? And so I fall asleep and I get woken up by this voice. And it says, Lou, I didn't create this mess, you did. I'm like, fuck you. What's this got to do? What have I got to do with global warming? And, you know, so I'm really angry with God. And that was my beginning to the non-dual awakening. That's when Course in Miracles landed on in my post. In actual fact, Gary Renard's book landed in my post box 2007 or 8, I think it was. I had the course since the year 2000, couldn't get into it. I quoted from it for my second book, but after Gary Renard, and I'm always grateful to Gary for that, that really triggered me. And then I started to really understand conversations with God a lot better. I started to realize that conversation has been happening with me my whole life, and it started to align really rapidly. But the point I'm trying to make is when our journey away from God ends, our journey towards God begins, and that's the inner turn. And yet it's only when our journey back to God ends, in other words, we return to the knowing of self, that our journey with God begins. So now we return to self and we now extend. And that's the transcendence that brings the world to the idea of a separate world to an end. Awakening to our essential nature, the essential nature of our true self, is only halfway in our journey. It's only halfway to becoming fully aware of the holy light of awareness we are. The rest of the journey is integrating this into, it's got to be integrated into the dream, okay, but we can't bring truth to the dream. So we awaken to truth in the dream. In other words, we've brought the illusion to the truth, and the truth inside us ignites as pure awareness, pure, joyous, peaceful, loving awareness. And now we bring that. We become the light in the dream that lights up the dream. It's what Christ did. So Christ called down the Holy Spirit. Now, Christ evoked the memory of God in him. He couldn't bring the Holy Spirit from heaven to earth. No. He evoked it within him. You know, so we can't bring truth to illusions. We have to bring the illusion to the truth. So when we face the illusion in our light of awareness, it dissolves the shadowy truth and we burst into light. And now we become the light for each other in the dream. There's sometimes people will say that Jesus is a character outside the dream. Outside the dream, yes, but not outside the dreaming mind. Because part of the mind's asleep, the other half is awake. Jesus is a symbol for a part of the mind now which is still awake, which always remained awake. And so when we observe the observer, we realize who's observing the observer, and then of course calls the observer the decision maker. Who's observing the decision maker? I am. And therefore, but then there's no decision maker. There's no decision to make if there's only right-mindedness. And when enough fractured off characters in the dreaming mind awaken to that self, the whole thing will just awaken to the light we all are. How long will the universe still last? It could take another 16 billion years, or it could take another 10, or it could take another 3 months or 3 weeks. When enough of us awaken to self, what would we want to hang around here for? Where something has to die for something to live. Because the closer you look at the illusion, the deeper the cruelty, the deeper the savagery, the deeper the ugliness, the deeper the vengefulness. It's only when you step away from it and soften your gaze upon your own dream that the love of self, the love the love which is self, shines brighter than the illusions of vengeance, sin, fear, and guilt.
Makes me think about forgiveness, obviously, as like the form of perception that enables you to get to that because it helps you to almost change the magnification from zooming in on nano details to seeing the whole picture and just casting one light across everything. And also, being more than aware of the level of teaching that you naturally kind of exude. As I said to you earlier, that one of the things that I had written down was, we need a benefit of experiential understanding of non-duality,
Yes.
and to reach that point where you get the awareness of the metaphysics of what's going on, you're still, that's not the end. Like you said, that's like the halfway point. Then you've got to go back in and, like you use the word, passionate with your passion, and then do what you're meant to do so that you can bring the light. I am the light of the world. Be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. What's the other one that I'm thinking of? Sell everything that you've got, give the money to the poor, and follow me. It's like, it's that way.
Mhm.
Illuminate, come together, multiply the apparently separate, localized points of consciousness and light
Yeah.
to increase the collective percentage as it's perceived between light and dark. And but this whole thing is like a juggling act between finding um, practical application to thought,
Michael.
and not just it's like getting past concepts, getting past thought forms, going, right, there's no concepts, there's no thought forms, and then stepping back in to concepts and thought forms to be able to use them to whisper to the other parts of your own fragmented mind.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
interestingly, somebody had watched one of my videos today, bless him, he's been going through them all. He's a really sweet guy. And he reminded me of something that I'd said to Miranda, one of my guests, and I'd forgotten it. And it came to me as a prayer that I had to go and grab my phone and write it down. I think it was along the lines of, I accept the healing light of God into my mind that it may extend outward to remind the others that they're not asleep, this kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
that principle, isn't it? It's like, if you can clear the decks, let the light come in, then that light comes out through you,
Yeah.
and in its nature it then touches other people, it illuminates the space around you. And interestingly, my last guest, she's fantastic, and she was talking to me about communication, and she was saying that only 7% of communication is the words we use.
Mhm.
And I think she said 23% was your body language, and then the other 70% is your energy field. And I was like, how cool is that? It's like, you
Makes
set your
perfect
intention,
sense.
you clear the decks, you then move through the world as it appears to be. You don't have to know that somebody's seen you. They could drive past you at 40 miles an hour, 100. But the energy, the intention, that's what's reminding them. You accept the healing light of God into your memory, that it may extend and awaken others who still think they're dreaming. And it's like, wow.
And you'll experience that yourself, and that because you can't, God is constantly giving us the proof.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'll use myself as an example, and then this is just pulling the piss, but I've always said I have a face for radio. And when I had the long beard, I used to scare women and their little babies. I used to run away, and people would just look at me and frown and hang on to their wallets and purses and just look for the nearest security guard and escape route. And so I walk around, I have a face that just barely ever smiles because I'm always in my head. So I look quite serious and I'm frowning because my eyesight's bad. And so I just look like as an angry dude. And then I'd look and people would be really afraid. 10, 12 years ago, and people smiling at me. And especially the grannies would want to come and touch me and chat and ask me if I was married because their granddaughters, you're not they notice you're not wearing a wedding ring, you know, and people would start smiling. It's like it took a while because like just checking my zippers up, Is there anything wrong? What are they laughing at? Took a little while to ease into it. And then just to allow, and what was happening was, as Christ's mind was repairing the work and dissolving the fear, the sin, the guilt, the vengeance, the light of Christ was shining through me beyond my own awareness, beyond my awareness, and giving me the proof that brought me into the awareness.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's quite beautiful now. I must say, I used to be a little standoffish with people, and you couldn't hug me unless, it was going to be 11 minutes thereafter. So it just, hugging meant 11 minutes, so no one hugged Lou. And I just had it, and I started easing into it. And I'm a hugger now. I can honestly say hug. And that was the transformation. But what was beautiful was I was it was reflected back at me before I became aware of it fully.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of Christ, of the memory, the holy memory of God in us, is it gives us proof. It doesn't ask us for blind faith. It asks us to be disciplined in our understanding, to just be willing to comprehend the non-duality of it all. I and my Father are one. What I can do, you can do, and greater things than I have done, you can do. I am with you always. I am you. And it just asks us to believe. Just say it at first and then believe it a little while, to be repeated often, to start to be believed. It'll then, and it's not asking, it starts to give us proof. And that's what's so beautiful about the dissolving of the sin, fear, guilt idea, and the realization I've never left my Father's kingdom. I've just had a silly little dream, and no matter what happens, I've never left. I'm returning to that. And we become dispassionate about the world. It no longer has any value for us. We become the value for it. We start to bring God's value into the world. There's no value here anymore. There's nothing here I want. Desire starts to fade. And that doesn't mean you have to be alone for the rest of your life either, and you'll never have anything. I have a fairly comfortable life, well taken care of. I love what I do. I'm financially fine. Is that the right word? I don't like to use the word abundance with finances, because abundance is energy. Finances is a measurement, but I'm taken care of, and there definitely is a divine providence taking place through my offering of my passionate talents to the fractured parts of myself, the world. But the proof comes, and it's beautiful. When this bugger got angry, he stayed angry for years. And then it was months, and then it was weeks, and now it's not even. I feel it rising up, if at all, and I just smile. I just, behind me. No, you're not going to trap me into that. It used to be the angriest driver. Traffic was always, now traffic's a meditation.
Yeah, what did I hear? Someone said it's almost like in the temple of traffic or something. Somebody, or the cathedral of traffic. It's like, go on, get in there and see if you can do the do.
There's just no altar in that cathedral.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Can we pause for just a second? I need to let out the cat.
So I'm wondering, for a little workbook, like a little toolkit, as therapists like to say. So one of the great things about a course is obviously it's individual and maybe unique in the sense that there's a huge emphasis on a practice, that relationships are the classroom. And relationships, something I like to emphasize recently, again, multi-interpretable. Literal definition might be my relationship with me and my wife, me and my mum. Relationship becomes with a memory, an event, a place, a pet, endless. And the constant element in relationship is the perceived separate self, so that there's 2 points for relationship to take place between. So we know that with Course in Miracles, that we've actually got a workbook. So it's like somebody's not just giving you all this theory and you sit down and you memorize it and go, great, I've got all that theory. It's saying, look, here's the classroom, relationships, your relationship with everything is your mirror. That's going to show you where you're at on the journey home back to yourself that you've never left, that takes no distance. But we know that there's like lots of oscillations and fluctuations between possessing the understanding and demonstrating it. We know Course in Miracles says to teach is to demonstrate. We know in the workbook it says you're still going to look the same as other people, but you're going to have like a less furrowed brow. In your case, you're going to scare less old ladies away. They're going to want to come and know if you're married. So I wonder whether or not you could articulate like a short, like a synopsis or like a something for a toolkit, so that somebody's watched this whole video, they've been with us on the journey to the metaphysics and then back to the experiential, practical application of temporary concepts to get us beyond concepts. What do you think you would like to say as like, in order for someone to keep it simple so they're not bombarded with like all the different options? Say like in the course where it will say, you know, you've got one problem, you know, and it presents itself in this myriad of ways, but you've got one problem and the solution's already yours and all your problems have already been solved. So this paradox, salvation is paradox, as we're told in the Course in Miracles. Yeah, that kind of question. Over to you, please.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would recommend to anyone, about 8 to 9 years ago, I did that whole Gallup research and I went on to something called Strengths Finder, which is all about understanding our natural talents, as opposed to, you know, in today's business world, we don't try and fix people's weaknesses, we enhance people's strengths. So we all have talent themes. It's like an Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs tool. Go and understand what makes you up. Get to the bottom of that. Go and do a course, not a course, go and do one of those tools. Go find a coach that can give you an Enneagram or a Myers-Briggs or a ENTJ or whatever you are, or the strongest one is really the Strengths Finder. Go and find that tool, Strengths Finder. You do the little online quiz and it spits out your 34 talent themes and it tells you how you operate. And now you understand your ego. You know, strategic, futuristic, belief, maximize and motivate. What's the makeup of this ego? And then realize that's what I designed to run away from God. Get to the bottom of that. And realize, how do I use my strengths? So let's, for example, I'll use my own self. Strategic, futuristic. That's how my two top talents. Strategic, everything I do is strategy. I used to plan the nth of everything. Today I plan nothing. I surrender to what is. I have a master's degree in strategy. I make no more plans. Imagine that. Strategic, futuristic. So I'm always in the future. So everything I'm planning is for the future. How does the ego use that? Okay. Number 3 in my talents is belief. If I don't believe in something, I don't do it. And obviously belief goes deeper into fundamental and, you know, and then the next talent was connectedness. So I connect the dots. It's the intuition. It's the connection. It's the spiritual aspect of it. Maximize. I want to maximize people's potential. I want to see people be the best they can, use their limited potential. And what am I doing? I'm now judging all the time because I'm putting people into boxes. The minute you understand your strength, you understand how the ego uses it. So get a grasp of your natural talent. Understand what makes up this idea you think you are. Get to the bottom of it, because in it lies your desires. In it lies your ambitions. Get to that. Then sit back. Once you've done that, once you understand this dynamic, then sit back and do a little exercise with yourself. get to the bottom of what is not forgiven in your mind. Because whatever's not forgiven, it's going to keep playing up. Now, when we fell asleep and we forgot what we were instantly, and then we imagined, what are we? So we started imagining, thoughts took form, and of course, lights and all of them. So big bang. And now we expand and we start playing with energies. And somewhere in between our little play of light, we think, hang a second, what made us? Whatever created us may destroy us, because whatever we create, we don't like, we destroy. So what if what created us, God, could destroy us, and fear entered our dream? That's it. And the minute fear entered the dream, we started to imagine why we could be destroyed. We weren't good enough. We must have been abandoned. We must have been rejected. We're unworthy. We're going to be punished. That's it. It's in all our makeup now. And that's going to play out through everybody's lives. So get to the bottom of what is it that I need to learn to overcome through forgiveness. So the simplest way to do that is think of the 6 closest people in your life and make up a list of 2 columns. What do I really love about them? And what do I really dislike about them? 1 page, 6 names, what I really like about these people, what I'd really dislike. These are your 6 favorite people. And you'll be amazed that what you really like about those people, you like about the self. It's our shared self. What you dislike about them, there's your forgiveness work. And now realize that that's going to show up, whether it's in your wife, in your cat, in your boss, in your colleague, in the traffic. Whatever you've written down in that list of 6 people, as these are supposed to be your 6 closest friends, and you still have a problem with them. There's your unforgiven lessons. And then go and trace those unforgiven lessons back. Where did it start? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, formative years. That's where it started. Yourself projected into form and set up those lessons. And the Holy Spirit said, go ahead, play that role, because this is what you want to do to escape, and this is what I'm going to use to return you when you give up. Wow. Once you realize what those forgiveness lessons are, then be conscious when they pop up. And then let's forgive, meaning I offer the understanding. What is the lesson? The transcendence of the lesson is realizing I've done this to myself. Forgive me, Father, for thinking I could do this to myself. And then the most important thing, lesson smack bang, Psalm 46:10, be still and know I am. So abide in silent stillness, 10, 15 minutes a day to start off with. Take a little bit of time during your lunch break. Do some in the evening, 3 times a day. Abide in silent stillness. Offer gratitude. Now you can start offering gratitude for people, places, things, and events, for whatever you have in your life. Gratitude is gratitude. Doesn't matter whether you're being gratitude for things or just grateful for being. The more you abide in gratitude, the more you abide in silent stillness. So people say, oh, I can't meditate. Meditation is the essence of what you are. Meditation is not sitting in a lotus position with your eyes closed, humming like a cow. It's simply abiding. Let the thoughts come and go, pay no attention. But now focus on gratitude. Focus on what you're grateful for. And that narrows the band of where your thinking is. And when you're in that silent stillness and in gratitude, realize in the silent stillness and in gratitude, you are the essence of the I am. That is your essential nature. That is yourself. That is your Christ self. That is the essence energy you share with God. Acknowledge that. And from that, extend. And then let the rest of the dream play out. So tomorrow you're up and tomorrow you're down. This too shall pass. And when you're having a really happy time, just realize tomorrow it might be shit. So enjoy this stuff. Like as I said, the word enjoy, not enjoy. Enjoy this now. And realize then tomorrow it's going to play up again, because the ego isn't going to let us go gently up the ladder. The ego is not going to just disappear and leave me there to die. And so realize that fear-based thought in your mind isn't going to just let you go gently into the light. So be aware, as you climb the ladder, there's a snake in there somewhere that's going to try and pull you back to the bottom of the ladder. Be vigilant for God only, meaning be present. And if you, with enough practice, whenever the screen seems to upset you, you switch off the projector and return to silent stillness. And then you can go into what appears as a war. You can go into the middle of a war country right now. There's a war going on in the north, and you don't take sides. You try and disarm the situation without destroying anyone, and you bring light and you serve. You don't take sides. There's no side. The minute you identify with a side, you're back into the war. There's no right, there's no wrong. Terror is in the mind. It plays out in the dream. And so we can choose to rise above the battlefield and just bring both sides into the awareness of the love we all are by just being present and showing up and doing the best you can with what you have. But until this becomes natural for us, I do recommend the practice. And I have a disciplined process. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and between 4 and 8 a.m., so for 4 hours every day, I do my disciplines. And what does that mean? It means I abide. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, cup of coffee, cigarette, Course in Miracles. I do my daily lessons. So every second year I do the lessons. Every alternative year I do the text. I've been doing that now since 20, whatever, 15, 20 years. I don't know. I've forgotten. It's irrelevant. That's my discipline. Then I just move into contemplation. I just soften. I see whatever comes up. I play out the previous day in gratitude. And I thank you for that. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. And then I just surrender. And the next thing, the dialogue starts. The voice of self. When I was a younger man, I thought there was an archangel, and then I thought it was Jesus talking to me. Now I realize it's our shared self, the memory for God in us. And what it's doing is it's clearing the content. It's clearing this canvas, which I painted this nightmare on. And with every stroke of silent stillness, it clears the canvas. And that canvas is clearing at a radical part. There's a couple of little dots left on my canvas. And then the clarity of conversation starts, and I just jot it down. And that becomes my daily blogs. And I post every day on Facebook and on my WhatsApp Course in Miracles group, and I share with them through my own words, which is just filtering through my filter, the voice for God. And I just bring through my non-dual understanding of the Course. Ken could teach at all 10 levels of the ladder. People like David bring joy at the bottom level of the ladder, bottom to middle level. I teach right at the top. I teach deep non-dual understanding, Course in Miracles. I'm not going to have thousands of followers. I cannot teach the Jesus hold your hand stuff because I cannot teach that way. It'd be inauthentic to me. If I smile, it looks like I'm about to bite someone. So I'm not designed to be that. So even when I'm joking, I look serious. So that's what I'm designed to do. This is the makeup of this fractured body mind returning to itself knowingly. There's no real formula. I'm speaking of what's working for me, but perhaps this could give you, whoever, a little guidance. But be disciplined. I mean, you know that wonderful term the church says, tithing. You got to give your tithing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, they misspelt it. Because they were supposed to say, give your timing to God. Give 10% of your timing to God. But somehow wrote tithing. And then it became fuck up. And now it's a little basket and you put your money in. God doesn't need marketing in churches and temples and people going around preaching for God. God needs you to all realize self. If you're selling the Course or you're selling religion, it's not meant to be that way. God doesn't need marketing. Give your timing to God. So there's 24 hours in a day in South Africa. I don't know about the rest of the world. So, 2.4 hours a day.
Yeah.
2.5 hours a day giving back to God. So I give 4 in the morning and I give 2 at night because I can. I'm married, no kids. So no one that needs attention. Cats are easy. You just boot them out the door, you know, feed them to the lions. Don't believe it. And and so I have, because I seek this more than anything else. Noel. This is my greatest and only desire, to be myself knowingly, to remember the essence of what I am and be the light for God in this world. In South Africa, there's enough teachers in Europe and around the world. I don't know of another teacher in South Africa teaching the way I teach. I'm sure there are other course communities. I'm not a community guy. You can't join my club.
Yeah.
I don't counsel. I don't coach. I offer this freely. But you've got to find your own formula. But without a little bit of discipline, without your tithing of time in abidance, in communion, don't expect it to change, because you've got to switch the projector off and realize the light is on. God is the light with which we see. Now, can you just get the filters out of the way? See the light we all are.
Yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic. So use one of the tools available to get a character profile of your egoic mind. Then do a list of 6 people that you love the most, good things and bad things, which is absolutely fantastic. And then see what shows up. And, I can testify to, like, when I look back, I can see like growth in a period of a month or a week or a day. Once you've had a thought properly implanted, once you have moved towards a thought that existed without because that's another great thing in the course, isn't it? It says you still think that your understanding is a valuable contribution to the truth. And once you realize there's a thought and you move towards that thought. And interestingly, one of my guests, we were talking about there's no small upsets. We were talking about there's no degrees. And then he was saying about the big stuff being the little stuff. And it almost like, to put a different spin on your suggestion, it's almost like you could have a list that said, put 6 people on there that you've never met, you're never going to meet, you almost only just cut tiny percentage of their being in your peripheral vision. And it might be a politician in a country on the other side of the world, it might be a celebrity, it might be this person, it might be a stranger. And then again, what those things mirror back to you, it might be that the physical form of somebody, somebody might be overweight or something, and it might be part of your mind that goes, oh, has an unloving reaction to that. There's the work, there's the classroom, there's the thing on the list that's like, right, how can I grow? How can I clear the decks? How can I remove the interference to the awareness of love's eternal presence? And a beautiful.
So we are judged by whom? By our own judgment of the judgment.
Yeah. And there's so much in the introduction for all of us, so many of us will like deep dive into the text and spend decades, and go through the workbook time and time again. Then you reach the manual, and then there's the pamphlets. There's like round and round. And because, as it gets spoken about a lot in these podcasts, is like the course is a living document. It meets you where you are. And you showed me your course earlier, and I've got the same thing. You open it up and you see something you've underlined, you read it again, that hasn't changed, your understanding has changed. So the book's in flux, understanding everything's in flux. Every time you come back to it, you're coming back to it from a place where you're getting more light into your awareness. If you're motioning that way back to your true self and to home. So equally, every time somebody strikes that introduction, and that if you needed like a hook on the end of the line to sort of catch most of us who've fallen in love with this system, it's that introduction. And also, you know, a brilliant point that gets made a lot is like, you know, you don't have to believe this, you don't have to believe any of this. You're being told you don't have to believe in God, you don't have to believe in this system, you don't have to believe in this course, but give it a pop, see how you feel after doing it for a year, and then make your own scientific, if you like, assessment based upon, do you feel more peaceful or do you not want to feel peace? You know, because if you don't want to feel peace, then I guess you could go, oh my God, that Course in Miracles is terrible because I used to love being at war with myself and now I'm all chilled out. That's why I burnt it.
And no one wants a peaceful adventure. We want the excitement, the ups and downs, you know, the shag, marry, kill stuff, you know. We want to go to Bali, eat, pray, love, but meet the guy or the girl and fall in love and passionate love making, 11 minutes of pleasure, 30 years of hell. And that's what we want. But then when we're going through the hell, we want the peace of God. The problem is we actually want a piece of God, not the peace of God. You know, and then we wonder why we get so upset. We're like doing this to ourselves. But the one beautiful thing about the course is the proof that comes with it. The proof is in the reading, in the pudding. But the beauty as well is people say, I read the course and I've already forgotten what I read. Yeah, you're going to forget all of it. Don't try and recite. Yes, but so-and-so quotes, you know, verse 32, and he said, I could see peace instead of this. And verse 30, they've memorized it. They've designed that way. You awaken to self, you won't remember anything. What are you trying to remember? Do you want to remember all of this nonsense instead of being peaceful? Would you rather give away all your memories just to be at peace? We want the memory, but we also want the peace. So we want the illusion and we want the truth. It's you. There's nothing to remember. You are all you've ever been, always, you will always be. You are the light, the love of God. What do you want to remember? Do you want to be it? You don't remember anything. When you're having fun, are you trying to remember what you did last week? When you're having fun, when you're enjoying, what are you trying to remember? You're enjoying. I'm trying to remember the course. Be. Oh, you are. If the course was only designed for intelligent people, there'd only be about 7 of us in the group. Ooh, I'm going to be straight to hell for that one. Don't pass go. $20.
I'm not forgiving you for that. I tell you what.
But I'd invite you'd be part of the group, Leon.
I know because I'm so special. You don't need to tell me that.
Oh, and everybody watching this, you'd be there too. So you're all 7.
We're all special, all 7 of us. Well, amazing conversation. And also, I feel like repeating what I said to you the other day and what I said to my wife when we'd spent an hour and a half on the phone is like, sometimes you meet somebody and something collapses and it's the memory or the forgetting of the time before.
The time before you didn't know them.
Yeah, exactly.
Now remember a part of yourself.
Yeah, and I had that, you know, it's such an amazing, and funnily enough, I was working for a chap, and he came to the house when I was on the phone to you, and we should have obviously touched base on how the day had gone and whatnot. And he literally just gave me a nod of his head. He must have gone in, seen what I've been up to, and left. And then we spoke about it the next day, and he said to me, I really didn't want to interrupt you because you looked like you were deep in conversation with one of your oldest friends or something. I was like, and I told him this, I said, you know what? We've never spoken before. And this guy has got a resting face that is like really grumpy, you know, he scares old ladies. And in his videos, he's having none of it when he shoots from the hip with his South African vibes and tells anybody that, you know, there's no teachers. And I, you know, it was great to actually reach out and for you to go, yeah, I'll participate. Sounds good. And I was almost a bit like, well, that guy, somebody hacked his account. He said that he'd be up for this. And it was a beautiful conversation last week, and today's been a beautiful conversation. And I feel like it's the start of a reconnection, because it's quite rare to feel this towards someone. So there's definitely an uncovering of a a knowing.
It's like remembering a part of yourself. It's like
Yeah,
there's never been a memory of not having had this brother.
there you go. That's it.
Because that's what happens when we reunite in the Christ we are. There's no memory of
Yeah.
there was no before and there is no after. So there
Mhm.
can be no memory of not knowing you.
Into your presence would I enter now.
Yeah,
Trust my brothers who are one with me.
that's it. Yeah.
Forgiveness lets us know that our minds are joined. Awesome. So, apart from having your sound meditation bath this afternoon and doing some yoga and Reiki, what else is on the cards for the rest of the day?
Chop wood, feed the kittens. That's it.
Awesome.
It's a quiet. I have a very reclusive weekend.
Good.
My weekends are reclusive
By
and
design.
by design. And if I'm not at home reading, writing, I'm on a motorcycle and you can't speak when there's a helmet on. So there's quiet time there as well. But
No.
I do get out and I have some really good friends, motorcycle friends that are consciously awake without a judgment. Just,
Yeah,
we can speak openly,
sure.
no judgment, most importantly. Um, I just have really, really good friends and just loving people.
Mm.
Um, and that's just a blessing. And I might say, I have a fairly small active group that join me once a week as I take them through the course.
Mm.
Fluctuates 25, 30 people.
Mhm.
In totality, the group's about 700 strong.
This
Got
is your
about
Facebook group in South Africa, yeah?
Facebook group, and they follow me on WhatsApp and on
Mm.
YouTube. About 400 active participants,
Yeah.
but weekly it's a small group of 12 to 25 that pitch up at any given time. And the beauty of it is like this: the
Mhm.
time stands still, and faces have become family.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I don't have a group where we sit and share stories. I play a teaching role.
Mhm.
I pretend to play a teaching role um, because of my deep passion for the truth and the way that I have in opening it up and sharing the different perspectives and layers of it.
Yeah.
And I have an open, question and answer session with them, and they bring me their challenges, and I
Mm.
share a perspective. And
Mm.
very often, people awaken to the truth through disagreeing with me.
Mm.
It strengthens their perspective
Yeah.
and brings them into the same realization. There's
Yeah.
only one truth. I am.
Mm.
Beyond that, we don't know while we're informed, but the joyous light of awareness ever extending through the self we are. And so it's been a beautiful journey. I wouldn't swap this for the rest of anything. And the beautiful thing is, Dion, I could never have imagined my life would be this peaceful.
Mm. How
It
lovely is
is,
that?
there's no way 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that you could have convinced me for all the money in the world that I would have a peaceful life.
Wow, I think that's awakened something in me, because I could actually say the same thing. Yeah, it'd be easy for me to listen to you saying that and go, yeah, nod, and then like a couple of hours or a day later go, hold on a minute. But actually, that dawns on me in the same shared moment to think, wow, so all of that trauma, all that fear, all that anxiety, um, to lead to such peace. And something that I like to stress a lot, not in the normal use of the word stress, but to impress, if you like, not in the normal use of the word impress. Something I like to say, whew, got away with that, is the authenticity, that comes from this. The qualification is the lived experience that gives the authenticity, because truth has a frequency. So if I want to sing a song to you about overcoming a journey through great sense of loss and fear and anxiety to a point where I'm back above the clouds again and floating above the realms of imagination, you can hear in my voice whether or not it registers in a way that you articulate it,
Absolutely.
that I am not bullshitting.
Mm.
And again, just to tap into what you were saying, there's a great use of that word imagine. I couldn't have imagined, and that is something very, very important to me. It's like when something is beyond what you could have imagined, there's a huge library of editions of like literature that you could get out of that tiny
Yeah.
sentiment, because it means so much more than you could have imagined. And there's yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. That's just can leave such an incredible sense. Again, it's like just a rush towards gratitude, because it's more than you could have imagined. And, I'll often explain to people that for me as an individual, it could be like today, my wife and I went down the beach and we sat on the beach with the dog for like almost an hour or something, and the waves. And if you'd have said to me yesterday that was going to happen, and I didn't know today, that it surprised me that it happened, that being beyond my imagination presents it to me in a way that you could say was like quite small. I didn't get a phone call this morning that said, Leon, hello, this is NASA. All right, yeah, we need you. Get over to Cape Canaveral. You're going to the moon tomorrow. It doesn't need to be on that scale. It could be that, we went and sat on the beach and we didn't know we were going to, and we were present. We abided there together in love. We laughed at the dog. We bumped into some people we really like. And that was beyond what I imagined. And I was extremely peaceful and extremely happy. And I cast a light on others during that process that mirrored back to me the fact that I have removed all of the traumas and all of the things that
Beautiful.
limited me. So, yeah.
If you ask me if I want to travel, I must be very careful here, because, I remember David, he didn't like to travel. And then Jesus said to him, dude, giving you a little 3-cylinder car, light on fumes, off you go.
That's it.
So let me not put this to test you. Dude, just, I really don't want to go anywhere. I've traveled to 52 countries. I've really traveled the world, mostly on business, funny enough, and mostly alone on business. So um, I have no desire to go anywhere. None whatsoever. I never want to see the inside of an airport or an airplane ever again, as long as I live. Or a ship. That whole word relationship. I like the idea of relation bike. Because on a bike, you can put 2 people. On a ship, you can put lots of people. So no more relationships, just a relation bike
Yeah.
at max with sidecar at worst. Okay. Bear with
No one
my
in the sidecar.
so I really don't want to go anywhere.
Mm.
As I started to come into this new awareness, I was lucky enough to meet with Zecharia Sitchin, who to me was one of my favorite authors, deciphered the Sumerian tablets. And I remember sitting with Zecharia Sitchin, Dr. Zecharia Sitchin, and looking at the pyramids and going, so disappointed. Now, I've studied architecture. I've studied the makeup of ancient ruins and ancient structures. When I saw the pyramids for the first time, I was expecting myself to get excited. But by the time I saw the pyramids, there was enough of the awakening taking place in the self whether I was looking at it on a postcard, on a computer screen, on a movie, or live stream, made no more difference. And that's when I realized no matter where we go, there we are. It's all in the mind. The impact, the excitement was gone. Yet give me what we call a barbecue, a braai in South Africa with a bunch of good friends, and we're all aligned, and there's just the joy flowing, and there's great conversation. +1. I'm a great +1 person. There's no +1 in my life right now, but that too shall maybe. Just that joyous being, whether I'm 10 minutes away as a botanical gardens, taking a walk there. I have no need to go to Bali to eat, pray, love. A little down the, 100 meters away is a little coffee shop. 150 meters away is a little Portuguese restaurant that makes food like my mother.
Oh.
Like, Mom, if you're listening, it's not as good as yours.
Of course,
never as good as yours, but close enough. And just, I'm friends with the restaurant manager, and him and I we have a passion for motorcycles. We just chat about classic bikes from the 60s and 70s. We both have a passion for British motorcycles. The more oil they leak, the more we enjoy them. BSA, Bonneville's, just to connect, and it's forget about what we're talking, just connection.
Wow.
And if I'm called to go, I will. But there's no desire anymore. There's no desire to fix, to build. I grew up as a very ambitious young boy, poor son of poor policeman's son. And so, ambition and drive and money. And by the time I was 30, I had the Ferrari, I had the model wife, and, I had the model life, and I designed my own home, and I was marketing director of this massive company, and things were good. The anger was still there. The disappointment was still there. I had all the toy. At one stage, I had 30 motorcycles, 8 or 9. I've actually forgotten how many cars I've owned. Why? You can only drive one at a time. I had suits worth more than watches. All of this nonsense that this little poor boy image thought it needed in order to be loved and appreciated and valued and validated, and for as many people that validated and acknowledged or admired or aspired to be, I had 10 times as many that despised you. No matter how much good you thought you were doing, you walk in an organization, you try and help a company, 10% love you and blow hotter up your imaginary Uranus. 10% absolutely hate you. 80% don't care either way, as long as you're making sure they're okay. You're actually only doing everything for self. Even when we give charity, it's because of our identity with self. I'm a charitable person. It makes me feel good. When you realize the dynamic of the dream, you realize I'm only here to awaken to self. Awakening to self shares self with the rest. If you look at a lava lamp, when it's all cold, it's just one big blob at the top, and as it heats up, it starts to melt down and come down, and it incarnates as a little bubble of liquid, and then it surfaces back to the surface, and it mixes with the congealates at the top, and it comes back down. Never the same piece of lava up and down. If you think you've got some special role and you're setting up, you're being good for the next special life or whatever, in for a surprise. The you that you think you are isn't the you that's going to return if you haven't awoken yourself. It's one dreaming mind. One collective ooze. Every single one of us that awakens to self awakens the mind to itself. The more we do it here, the more we awaken here. Now, where's there to go? But with self. And if you can have the mirrors of self, like you say with your wife, that is the true mighty companion. Holy relationship is with self. And so when holy relationship with self becomes the essence of what you are, there's no more special love relationships. because all those titles go. A special love or relationship is something with a title. Family, mother, father, brother, friend, boss, colleague, whatever. If the relationship has a title, if you can label it, it's a special love-hate relationship. When there's no more titles, when there's no more need to be, when you can walk into a room and introduce your spouse by her name as opposed to saying, this is my wife, you know, and when everyone is brother, sister, when everyone is a reflection of the love I am, you're there. And now's not the time to run away. Now's the time to pour it in.
Yeah.
Now the journey with God begins in the dream, so that you bring the light. You are the light of Christ. So it's all wonderful having Jesus to hold your hand, but at some stage you need to let that hand go and become like a Jesus that holds the hands of your siblings.
Yeah.
And then turn them into Jesus too, which holds the hands of their siblings, and really be spreading this light. This should be our greatest desire.
That's amazing. And, I'm just thinking, as you're talking, a couple of my favorite sayings, which kind of like, have we got a cat coming to join us? Yeah, good. It's always a good sign when the cats get involved. Yeah, there's a couple of my favorite sayings which kind of like come to mind because you were describing the intention towards travel and geography, but then also they're equally relevant to the metaphysics of what's going on here. And one's by G.K. Chesterton, one's by Plinius, and one says the object of foreign travel is to travel on your own land as though it's foreign. And the other one says people go on great journeys to see things, countries far, far away that they do not favor with their attention at home. And, those two things go together and they apply to this desire to not need to extend beyond what could be called simple, and for me, it is like a cup of coffee on the doorstep in the morning, looking at the clouds, and that everything is contained, in that tiny little moment, and the moment contains everything. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope I already know it's the start of a friendship that needs to run the course of our time here on this illusory planet.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the wonderful questions. Thanks for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
And sharing the light of the awareness we are. Thank you.
Likewise. Take care, Mum.
Yes.